Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Romero. I am the program manager for the Colorado Lighting Efficiency and New Mexico Lighting Efficiency programs at Xcel.
And my name is Bob McCauley. I am Trade Relations Manager for Xcel Energy's Commercial Industrial Energy Efficiency programs. Been working in this department for about 12 years, handled all our various programs except for lighting, which I started with last year when my colleague, who many of you may have known, Derek Shockley, retired. So I don't quite have the history in lighting as I do for all our other programs, but I'm getting up to speed, and that's where meetings like this are always educational for me also. So I appreciate the time to be able to meet with you guys today.
Fantastic. I don't know if I said I'm the executive director of the EBC, and we are a trade association. Patrick, if you've been on emails for a while, you know that, but for all of the different industries, everything from contractors, manufacturers, distributors, engineering firms, third-party implementers of utility programs and whatnot. So a wide breadth and depth of members involved with our rebate programs or meetings. So with that, Scott, do you want to kind of kick everything off?
Sure. Yeah. So first, I just want to say, Bob and Paige, thanks a lot for joining us today, and appreciate all that Xcel does. And we're excited to have you. I listened in a little bit yesterday. I was kind of passively listening in to your DSM roundtable call yesterday, and I kind of want to start the meeting with a little bit of that, just because one of the things that really stood out to me in that call was that through Q2, you guys are at, I think I highlighted it here. Oh, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on, let me share my screen real quick so everybody can see this and share.
Let me ask before you go there, Scott. Paige, I wasn't on the quarterly DSM meeting. Were you able to attend?
Yeah, I listened passively.
Okay.
About everything except for the product development stuff. Good.
Yeah, I usually get a review at our team meeting, but that has not happened yet. So this is good news to me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the meeting was, I think this meeting is pretty timely to that meeting, because like I said, the one thing that really stood out to me in the meeting was that right now through Q2, you guys are at around 23% of your target goals for lighting. So obviously there's opportunity there for lighting to increase. And, one of the things I also noticed is that if I'm reading this spreadsheet correctly, lighting still does, though, represent a pretty big portion of your business program savings. Looks like about 4.1 megawatts, and total business program savings are about 16.1. So look, if I'm reading this correctly, it's represented about 25% of your overall savings in the business programs. But obviously we wanted to talk to you guys because we think there's a lot of potential there for lighting, and potential for lighting savings to obviously be a bigger portion of that. And obviously you guys have bigger goals, and we had come up with our top targets and things that we think are opportunities out there. But we kind of wanted to hear from you guys, because we never really put the, and I know we'd put it out to you guys to say, like, we're curious to know, I think, like, where do you think in the future these savings can come from, so that you can increase that 23%. And I don't know if getting it to 100% is realistic, but do you think it's realistic to get it to 100%? Where do you guys think those savings can come from? And then maybe talk with you guys about, some of our ideas as to where we think there's some big savings potentials and opportunities as well. And so, these, I hope you can see my screen. These 7 over here were kind of some of the top things that we had come up with, but wanted to kind of hear from you guys and see, what are you guys thinking, and where do you guys see the major savings opportunities for lighting coming from going forward here? And do you see these programs increasing, hopefully, and or do you see them kind of going the sunsetting, like what they're doing in Colorado Springs?
Okay. I think there were a few questions in there. So I guess I can kind of speak to the last one about, like, do we think, like, is lighting going away? I don't think so. And I think, based on the presentation that Mark gave yesterday, I don't know if you were able to catch that slide where it kind of shows, what portion electric savings will contribute to our portfolio. And I think he showed that it will be less of the portfolio savings than it is currently, or we're relying on that less. Yeah, that slide there, but it's not going away. And I think lighting is still going to be a big contributor. There are a lot of factors though in there, including like our net to gross that comes about from our product evaluations that we have every 2 years. Those evaluations, kind of deem how much savings we can claim and like the influence of our programs on the market. So currently we're at like 73% on the prescriptive side and 78% on the midstream side. So what that means is we only get to claim, 73 and 78% of the savings that actually come in. And so, we're having to spend more money to get those savings. And then at the same time, at least with our current incentive mechanism, avoided revenue requirements are going down. So that's making it kind of hard for our program to be cost effective. I mean, even just this year, a lot of the measures in the program are really struggling with cost effectiveness, because as we add like more renewables to the system, the benefits of those upgrades kind of go down. And so when we went from our 2020 to our 2021, 2020 to our 2021 plan, those benefits dropped by 20%. And then they're estimated to drop again in 2023. So it's just making it harder for these measures, at least at the moment, to be cost effective. Our program still does bring in a lot of net benefits for the portfolio. So it's still a large contributor. There's just a lot of factors, I guess, at play, but.
And can you explain the revenue part that you talked about, maybe a little, so we all understand that maybe a little bit better? And if I'm understanding, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly too. So I know I'm asking you a couple questions here, but as you go to renewables, right, the benefits of efficiency are going down because you're not avoiding the emissions. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Fuel
Basically,
costs.
yeah.
Fuel costs also.
Okay, got it.
No fuel cost with wind or solar.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that included in your avoided costs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then with regards to the revenue, the thing that you were saying, the avoided, I think it was avoided revenue. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen those before, but I think they file it in the plan. Like each of our programs, we have a cost bends on each of our programs. So we have the benefits of these upgrades, which are avoided revenue requirement benefits. And then we have to factor in the incremental capital costs in Colorado, as well as the O&M costs. And then basically we take those benefits minus the costs and the O&M to calculate our cost effectiveness and our net benefits.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty sure it's filed, or you can find it in our filings. I think it's towards the back.
Okay.
But you should be able to see those breakouts. I'm gonna open that up really quickly to see if I can kind of show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and Paige, while you're here, in a word, is the same thing happening in New Mexico as well?
It looks a little bit different in New Mexico, just kind of based on our renewables and generation down there. It's not the same mix in Minnesota, Colorado, and New Mexico.
Okay.
And we also follow we use a different cost effectiveness test in Minnesota. We use the utility cost test versus Colorado, where we use the societal cost test. So they're evaluated differently.
Okay.
And so back to one of the original questions, where do you guys see the savings coming from? Is 100% a realistic goal too?
I guess I'm confused what you mean by that. Is 100% realistic?
Well,
goal?
when you say you're at 23% of your goal
Oh, sure.
for the year, you know, I'm assuming that the bonuses are going to help you close a little bit of that gap, but I would suspect that you're still not going to end the year at 100% of goal. You know, maybe you
Right.
end up at like 60% or 55% or something like that. So going forward, how could we help you to get to that 100%? And where would you envision most of the savings coming from?
I think going forward, we're hoping to get those savings from fixtures and controls, hopefully. Right now, we're not making any changes to our exterior lighting rebates, but that was kind of the intent of the 2023 plan, is to be kind of a continuation of the current plan. I think things will change with strategic issues. I mean, we're going to have new incentive mechanisms, and we'll be evaluating like the higher fuel costs that are happening right now. That'll be factored in. So that could kind of change the way things look. But that's all kind of up in the air still, as strategic issues is not approved yet.
And do you envision electrification being, obviously the major, that was the one thing I got out of the meeting yesterday, is there's a major, and I knew this already too, but like there's a major push right now for going towards electrification. Do you envision that and being obviously part of the plan going forward, and there being a shift in when you guys are trying to achieve savings from like a time of day standpoint, where nighttime would become more beneficial to Xcel, is I guess what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I've asked about it since I got your question, and I think we looked at it more from what will it look like in 2023, and things were still not cost effective, but I don't know that we've done that modeling based on the changes that we're making in strategic issues. So I don't really have like that higher level of guidance yet to kind of speak to that.
Okay.
And if I could add something to that, just the beneficial electrification, that whole docket will be in settlement process through December. And then if all the groups agree, it'll be finalized, but it won't go and be filed until like March 2020. So then the 2023 DSM plan that we're all working on now, that'll go through. So it really won't be until March, approximately, Paige, isn't it, that you guys will really know what is the outcome of the beneficial electrification settlement process, what happened. Not much we're expecting for 2023. It's an extension. Then everybody's going to figure out, hopefully some of the work that we're doing now will help us frame out kind of what happens when that comes through, right? And you guys will then put your 2024 through 2026 plan in place and file in July next year.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I know, I don't know the specifics on the timeline. I think it can extend if there are like, there's like some settlement things.
Yeah, it'll go into April if everybody doesn't agree in December.
Yeah, but I definitely think that would be a good time, to circle back again together as early as we can on some of the changes to the lighting program that'll come about as a result of that. Because I think, being transparent, when we got your your survey results, we were already in like the third round of our filing internally. And so typically we are not making, you know, a ton of additional engineering changes at that point before we file. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean like 60-day notices once the plan is filed are out of the question or anything like that.
60-day notices are a way where you guys will release a change and you wait for comments, and if there are no comments, it goes through.
Right.
So
Mhm.
that's when like members of the EBC have an opportunity to give input.
Mhm.
Yeah, outside of the normal filing calendar.
Right.
But yeah, I think you summed it up nicely, Patricia, as far as, you know, normally we work on a biennial plan, you know, the 2021, or I'm sorry, 21-22 plan, which was approved and kicked in. I think it started like April last year. It's never a calendar year, you know, because of the way the process works. Just like 22 may extend into early 23, even though we're doing an extension. But we always kind of work around that strategic issues filing, which takes place, seems like about every 5 years, because that does give us a new stake in the ground as to where things are and where we see them going. And in some cases, the direction we're given, you know, whether it's by the PUC or the legislature, you know, where they want to see things. Electrification's a great example of that, you know, where it's now on everybody's radar. So that's why we decided it's just a 1-year extension for 23, but coming out of that strategic issues filing will be that new direction. And that's where, as Paige mentioned, I think it'd be great to be able to impact the 24-25 filing based on what the strategic issue tells us, and then also what you see and what you're telling us is going on in the marketplace. Seems like that would have the biggest impact.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think the one thing that another thing I've gathered from, because I listened to the EV roundtable meetings too, is that there is going to be a shift in the next 5 years or so. From the data that they're seeing there, and I'm sure you guys are talking, but there is going to be a shift in where that peak occurs for you guys, and it is going to shift to later times is what it looks like from all the data that I've seen. It's going to shift to later times. So, you know, one of our top things that we had brought forward was better nighttime rebates, better controls rebate for exterior stuff. So that is one thing that we hope you guys will consider, I think, as you move towards that 2024 filing. You know, I know we're a little early on it right now, but we're really, it's going to be here, it'll be here before we know it type thing, right? So.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I sat in on a meeting not too long ago where, you know, the projections as we head out to 2030 with electrification is, and just what you mentioned, Scott, not only will our peak demand change as far as the current hours, where it's, you know, 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, June through September, you know, but with electrification and you know, heating, HVAC, you know, heating components going, you know, electric, and people charging cars and where the forecasts are going, the whole season could change as far as peak demand. Right. It may not even be summer anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And where do you see the flip happening? Do you know, Bob?
You know, they didn't. It's
kind of hard. I'm sure hard to forecast.
Yeah, you know, because when you talk to the municipalities and the cities, and with all the money and efforts they're and hiring they're doing to make that happen, they'd love to see it happen tomorrow. You know, next year. You know, yet as you all know, if you've sat on some of our calls, you know, we're not prepared for that type, and nor could that happen. I mean, that's wishful thinking, you know, but over the next, you know, 5 to 8 years, yeah, you know, and we need to be ready. And, you know, when we're going to be, you know, carbon neutral by 2050 and 80+% renewables by 2030, you know, it's like all these things are happening concurrently, you know, and we're all trying to forecast for it. And when I sit in with our, you know, distribution side and generation side, I mean, they're on it. It's like we get a new update every 6 months as to how things are looking, you know.
You know, I was thinking that one of the pain points Xcel must be experiencing is, you know, to the extent that you have natural gas powered plants, with the spike in nat gas prices, that's gotta hurt.
Oh.
Well,
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And well, I was assuming too, Paige, back to what you were saying before about the cost of fuel supplies. Although, Bob, you're saying that there's no cost to, renewables in terms of fuel sources, and that's sort of true. But what the cost is how big you have to make your solar farm or your wind farm, right? And that's based on the demand. So the smaller the demand can be, i.e. through efficiency, then, you reduce that CapEx, right?
Right.
So it's not an ongoing cost, but it's the upfront cost of, having to put another windmill up that gets avoided.
Yeah. And Paige, back to your point of like, when I was asking about where you see like kind of lighting, I guess, rising to the need here, or getting closer to that, to your goal, and you'd mentioned like maybe through fixtures and things like that. So do you envision like more marketing? Do you envision like higher rebates?
yeah, I
Or
think
just, or like a combination, like how do you envision that?
I think our overarching themes are like, we want to make it as easy to participate for people as possible. So something that we've just been kind of thinking about, and I know it's implemented now in Minnesota, is just kind of like a dual pathway sort of model. So let customers participate however it makes sense for them to. So how we currently have certain measures that just live in instant rebate, and certain measures that just live in the downstream rebate program, where you have to fill out the application. Something we've thought about is like, what if we just, put all the measures in both programs? So if customers want to just buy from their distributor and get their rebate that way, then that's an option. Or if they'd rather participate through our downstream offering, where they fill out the app, send it in, and then get their rebate check later. In Minnesota, Kim added lamps back to downstream, so they're offered in both platforms. Things like that, looking for just creative ways to make it as easy as possible for people to participate. Another thing we've thought about and are exploring is maybe getting rid of the baseline information that we collect. Because
I think that's one of the things we had talked about too. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to think about those ramifications, because if we're not collecting that information anymore, then we have to deem it. And then, what does that mean for our savings that we're collecting? Moving forward, will we take a hit on that, basically? But it's kind of understanding like, is that risk worth it, basically? If we're claiming a little bit less, but we're getting more projects overall, because the requirements to participate are a little less stringent. Things like that are kind of what we're talking about and looking into. And I don't know, I've recently just been thinking about our current controls rebates. I know, previously we used to rebate on $1 per widget sort of basis, and then we shifted to the $1 per controlled watt. And it's just something that I've been thinking about lately. Like, does that make sense? Because we've had projects where, the customer, it's like a $2 rebate, because it's like a sensor in a bathroom or something like that. So.
And it's not worth taking the hour and a half to fill out the form for $2.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Paige, has Xcel seen the level of control implementation that was forecasted maybe in when those first control rebates came out in 2017, 2018, 2019, that time frame? Are you guys seeing that type of implementation, or what's that look like?
We've started to see a few more projects this year than we have in years past, but it's still not a lot of participation overall. I can look, I have a file open currently to see what our savings are. I'm sure
you know,
it's pretty
while you're
small.
looking for that page, I'm just going to mention, it's a great question. And some of you on the call may have received an email letting you know that the lighting program is currently being evaluated by a third party, which we are, it's mandatory that we do every few years for all our programs. And that you may be hearing from this company, and they're going to be asking questions just like this to get your feedback as to what's going on in the marketplace. And I know controls was a part of what they were going to be asking, so yeah,
I've
Scott.
not heard from them, Bob.
You haven't heard, have you, or not yet?
No, not,
Okay.
no.
It should be, well, again, I sent it out to everyone and they were gonna then follow up via email with the link and trying to figure out a calendar, when to get on your calendar. So Paige, I haven't heard, has that started yet, or we don't know?
It should have. I think they were supposed to follow up right after you sent your initial email.
Mine's scheduled, I think, for next week, just for the record. Like I
Okay.
did see it come out.
Okay.
So I know it's out there.
And they're just doing a few at a time, Scott, rather than send it out because they want to see what the response is, get them on the calendar, and then they know what future open times and dates they have. So it doesn't mean you may still not hear from them.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to just summarize, Paige and everyone, that it sounds like two areas that, is there any value for our group to think about what you just said, Paige, and look at the programs in terms of ease of participation? What would increase that? And if there was an increase, would it be like, I like the example you gave of, we're processing lower rebates, but 10 times as many. Like look at metrics of what we think that shift would be based on a change. Would that be valuable to look at in those two areas? You said controls, rebates, and what was the other one?
You'd mentioned fixtures, I think. But
And just removing the baseline requirements.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
Or even the dual pathway model, like if we could get like your general thoughts on it, that would be really helpful for us.
And that's all in the thinking about how we could help almost like accelerate the adoption by, or the use of the rebates by the end of the year to get your 23% up. Is that what we're talking, like a short time frame like that? Or are we talking about kind of long term?
That would definitely be more like long term. I don't think we're filing any 60-day notices this year. And then we're actually going to be conducting a study with the third party on the baseline stuff. So they can kind of give us an idea of what they're seeing in the market for certain customers in terms of the equipment that they currently have. But I guess, I don't know, it would just be valuable whether you think those are good ideas off the bat. Those seem like they would be valuable to customers, make their lives easier. We would get more participation if those were things that we did.
I would, to Patrick's point, we personally, or at CLI, has not seen the level of adoption of controls that we would like to have seen to this point in what we're selling. We often present it, but it often gets value engineered out of the projects. And so I think that's a really great opportunity for Xcel to increase savings, and something that where you guys, if you guys would either, and I don't love for the record, I don't love the savings, or that it's based on the wattage. I think it makes it a little difficult sometimes. It would be easier if it was like a per device type rebate. I think that would help increase adoption personally on my side. I believe that. I think if we could have a little bit better rebates for some of these controls, especially when you start getting up to the networked controls that are a little more complex and harder to implement. If we had higher rebates for that, I think you would see an increase in adoption. Record.
Absolutely, I agree. Our projects hit a brick wall as soon as the cost savings analysis comes out. And it's always hard to show, traffic patterns and how often things are going to be on versus off and how much savings there are going to be associated with it. So the metrics behind that can be a little difficult to convey to a customer. So they don't necessarily see the value in it. So just having a little bit more incentive from a rebate perspective would definitely catch their eye, I think, and hopefully push some of that forward.
Yeah. And I know last time we had kind of talked about incorporating the demand response like opportunities for controls that the customer can also get upfront money from demand response and then continual dollars based on how many events they participate in. And I have not added that information to the website because it's currently available and an option for customers. And I think the amount was pretty high last time in terms of what the average customer is getting from our Peak Partner Rewards program. Looks like the average customer is getting about $7,400 on average if they participate in 3 events.
How big of a customer is that?
This is for the Peak Partner Rewards.
Yeah, but what's the cutoff? There's a cutoff. Is it there for size of customer for that?
There is, but I know it's for smaller customers. Bob, do you happen to know the Peak Partner Rewards threshold?
I can look. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think I have one of the program sheets on it.
I don't think it's for like the ultra large manufacturing customers that some of our demand response programs target. I do think it's more accessible.
And I would say, more information on that and more clarity, I guess, and more education as to how those things come together from a rebate standpoint, and almost like an education on how someone like us could sell that to the end user and say like, hey, we can come in here and retrofit all your lights. We're going to save you this much, get you like rebates for your controls. But in addition to that, you can also participate in this other program. Here's how this other program would work. And here's how you can integrate these 2 or 3 things together to get, a good chunk of savings, dollar savings for your business. So education outreach on that would be beneficial, I think, or if you want to present to our group or whatever, how we could bring all those things together, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really good opportunity too. So I could definitely arrange that with that program manager.
Yeah. I see Peak Partner Rewards. We actually have these listed now. If you guys are familiar with our business program summary, that's available on our website. And I'm going to turn my camera back on. When you were sharing your screen, all my video froze up on me. So I'm hoping that isn't the case anymore. So this is the business program summary. It's a PDF on our website. It used to just be our commercial DSM programs, but now when you go to it in the very back, we actually have the demand management programs listed. And Peak Partner Rewards is one of them that is listed there, along with about 4 or 5 others, all depending on the size of the customer, the rate they're on, and various incentives depending on what they're capable of pulling off, managing as far as load. But yeah, that's definitely something we could. Were you thinking of Audrey there?
Yes.
Paige? Yeah, she's joined us on a few calls as we're also trying to, for our energy management systems, our overall building automation controls program, we're trying to kind of integrate that with those offerings too, because we're hearing from more and more trade partners and customers that they want that ability, to be able to take advantage through their energy management system, participate in some of our demand management programs.
Back to your point before about the $2 aux sensor in the bathroom that we joked about. So, but network controls, as we've just been talking about, is one thing, but also the standalone controls. I think they're obviously not as intelligent as a network control, but the rebates you have now are, completely insufficient for me to sell it. So adding a combined aux and daylight harvesting sensor, I mean, you put it on a super efficient 20-some watt fixture, and the rebate's going to be, 24 cents or some, or, $2.40 or something on the control that costs 30 or more. So that won't do it. However, thinking about, a stairwell or something like that, where you could use those things, it would really, a bigger rebate, and perhaps not based on a control watt, but like Scott was saying, if it was based on just the item itself, a fixed amount that was $15 or something like that, it might make selling it a lot easier.
Do you guys work with any other utilities where like they have different structured controls rebates, like they're doing dollar per widget? Work with just Xcel in the Xcel territory?
Well, we actually work with Tri-State PRPA on Holy Cross, but on heat pumps mostly. And we actually had Tri-State reach out and wanted to come and walk through their commercial program with our group and get some feedback on it. So if there are some areas to prioritize, when we kind of do a discussion like this with them, is that one that you would like to learn more about? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. All right, just in general, like if there are other aspects of different utility programs that you like that we don't have in our program that we should consider.
Jim, you look like you were maybe going to say something, but you work in other territories fairly often, right? And don't you, right? I know you used to.
in California, and with Southern California Edison specifically, but I guess my experience with demand management is that the calculations have to get to wattage. And so I'm thinking of that when, we're talking about controls and trying to integrate lighting controls into the demand management and trying to get away from a calculation of watts. I think you're probably going to end up back to watts.
Jim, how do the rebates look there for equivalent watt savings? Like here for I'm looking at it now. So an aux sensor here gets 5 cents a watt controlled, right, on a standalone control, and a daylight harvester 10 cents. And if you combine them, you get 15 cents a watt. Do you know what it looks like there in when it's all said and done in California?
I don't have that on the top of my head, but
this is where you lie and say, yeah, it works out to be like $5 a watt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key, and we sort of talked about it several times, is the ease of the program. And so, one of the comments that the group had was the custom program with Xcel, and how that shouldn't be it should be more transparent as to how you calculate that rebate, and if it can be a spreadsheet that is given to contractors so that we can calculate exactly what it is, because I recognize that the peak are changing, and if you're going to discount for the renewable mix, and that's there's no fuel costs, so perhaps the benefits are reduced, and all of those factors I recognize are in the equation, but it is an equation, and if we could make that available to us, then we would be able to go out and develop a custom program. He looks at controls and equipment and does some of that math and qualification process for the utility. It serves two purposes. One, we want to educate the customer really what the rebate benefit is, and in the process we're documenting what it is Xcel needs to see to for the TRC calculations and that. So
no longer a black box. Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud here. Is there any way to tier your rebate structure on controls based on type of facility? So, you could have a multifamily and then break that down by area in which it's used. So maybe corridors in a multifamily facility get, $20 per watt saved, or, I'm just throwing numbers out. Whereas maybe a restroom that you're doing that standalone control might get something a little bit lower. So then, from our perspective, with LED lighting just becoming more saturated and adopted throughout the commercial industry, I can go back to previous customers with energy analysis that I already have done, with scope of works that I already have done. I could put together something even before even talking to them. So when I'm calling them, I can message, hey, listen, based on, your facility in a multifamily in all these common area corridors, we could go in and put some controls throughout there, which would cost X, and you're going to get this much in rebate. It might just help that conversation get generated right off the bat, and tier it a little bit more, just so it's not just one low number that doesn't really incentivize anyone.
Yeah. It's interesting with, I guess, I don't know, I've kind of thought about it because there really are some facilities that have more coincidence factor and longer operating hours where those projects look better than others. But it's not something that I've asked from a regulatory perspective, whether we could allow that, like, could we give some customers higher rebates than others? But I guess you're just saying, like, within the facility itself.
Yeah, depending on the industry, if you have manufacturing, warehousing, multifamily, all across the board, you could kind of have little drop downs, so to speak, in the rebate application that could show, okay, for a multifamily, yeah, you're looking at, $15 per watt saved versus like maybe a commercial high rise, for tenants, or for something like that, where it gets maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the traffic.
Yeah, it's a good question that I can follow up on. Because I just don't know how, like, if we're not being equitable, what does that mean for our programs? If we're going to give a manufacturer who's on probably 24 hours versus a multifamily building, could we give them a higher rebate? I don't know, but it's an interesting question as we try to make our programs like more cost effective. And encourage those better projects in the future. So I'll definitely.
Yeah, you can see where that would be a challenge prescriptively. You almost defined why custom is out there, to look at those, projects that have so many different variables. You really can't come up with a one size fits all incentive. You got to look at the operating hours. You got to look at the facility, the age, the equipment, and all that stuff to come up with the energy savings and rebate amount. I don't know if that's possible to do prescriptively, Paige, but maybe there's tiers there that we could consider, with engineering's guidance.
I want to, go ahead, Paige.
Oh, I was just going to respond to Jim's question about the custom. I don't know that we can give you that exact equation. I do think, or I've heard that the engineering team is working on possibly providing just more information on the rejection letters, at least about why specifically the project failed. So you can have a little better understanding of that, and that can help you with future projects. But I do want to know, I actually don't manage that custom program. That's another program manager. Right. So I guess just to clarify that.
Well, I've been around long enough. I remember testifying to the PUC like 25 years ago about energy conservation programs with Public Service of Colorado, and Jane Finleon was the program manager back then. And one thing that came out of that is really, the contracting community really should be seen as a resource for Xcel in these programs. We have common goals, right? You're trying to get a certain amount of efficiency installed. That's what we do. That's all we do. So we're your, as Jane coined the term, we're your foot soldiers, and we're the ones out in the field that can really take a program and get results quickly. So to the extent that you can help us educate the customer and or make it easier somehow, maybe it is combining midstream and prescriptive programs. But I would just encourage you to really look at this. And I was really excited about this meeting because it's this dialogue we're having is we all see as very valuable for us and our businesses. And because not only are we understanding what your objectives are, maybe we're designing solutions that we'll both know of and we can both act on quickly. And so I'll leave it there, but we do have common objectives. So we'd like to do controls. We'd like to do controls. We'd like to do daylight harvesting if that helps the summer peak. As we get more renewables, we can incorporate lighting and demand management very easily. Those things marry. Done projects with demand control, and lighting just makes that easier. So it's great to see that you have those objectives, the demand management as well as lighting efficiency.
So, no, that's fantastic. Is there, I know we have like 4 minutes left. I know, Scott, you have a hard stop. Have we hit on kind of our top 7 here? Is there any?
We talked about them. The one thing I did want to say is, to your point, Paige, and where you're seeing like maybe the opportunities or where the big savings are going to come from. I would agree personally that, what we had on here is number 5, higher rebates for troffer, linear high bays, and other retrofit kits. Those are going to be great. There is a ton of opportunity still out there. I think everybody would agree with me that there's a lot of opportunity out there still for energy efficiency in lighting. There's a lot of even T12 still out there, older, obviously T8 technology out there. So there's a lot of opportunity to change these fixtures over. The one thing I'm hoping that, you guys would consider is maybe providing a little higher rebates or making some of these bonuses permanent, because, as we've all seen, there's been a lot of inflation this year. It looks like it's starting to wane right now, some of that inflation, but I think what we're probably going to see is that wage rate inflation is probably not going to wane. We've passed all these bills. There's going to be more competition for finding technicians to go out and do these projects. And I suspect that over the next few years that our labor rates are going to continue to go up, which will continue, we will have to pass that on to our customers, which will raise the cost of these projects. And I'm hoping that the rebates can match what we're seeing happening in the market too. And that, I think that some of these rebates would be served by increasing them a little bit to increase adoptions.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that aligns with kind of what we're seeing cost-wise ourselves. So
okay.
So is there a way for us to look at the ones that if they were increased X amount, we think we would get X more participation? Like, do you want us to go through the first 7? Like, are any of those priorities to look at that way? I want to make sure we kind of get some direction on. 7.
like, what would the ideal rebate amount be?
Yeah, like, is there like where if Scott is saying that if we increase this one by X, we think we would get double?
Yeah, I think that would be valuable. Like, what do you think would really push customers over? That's great. I mean, linear ambients are so not cost effective for us that those ones, I don't know whether we'll increase those or not. But I think there's possibility with the troffers and high bays and kits.
Okay.
Do you think you'll see that by the end of this year or before the bonuses are over with?
Oh, that rebate increase?
Yeah. Or is this more scheduled for 2023, 24?
I was thinking of it more as a scheduled thing since we have the bonuses
Mhm.
in the marketplace, I guess. And I'm curious on people's general thoughts about the current bonuses. Do we feel like those kind of put the rebates at the right amount, or they're still falling short?
Well, and I know you can't give an average or a standard project, but with the bonus, would you say we're covering 30% of the project cost, equipment and labor? Are we higher, lower, somewhere in the middle? What would you just, and I won't hold you to it, without having any, data to support it, but what would your guess be? What would your thought be?
Yeah, we could provide some of those percentages.
Yeah, and I think that'd be helpful. Yeah.
Troffers for sure, I would say we're not at 30%.
Yeah.
When we factor labor, recycling,
Mhm. Mhm.
material in.
Because most of our programs, we have it there in the small print on the rebate app, and not all of them will hit this, but we are limited to 60% of project cost. Our rebates cap out at 60%, with the bonus 75%. I can tell you, out of all the programs I handle, only one I really see come close is drives, VFDs, one of our most lucrative programs. And equipment and labor, I see us capping out at 60 or 75% pretty frequently. But there's huge savings, as many of you probably know, especially putting a drive in, on a pump or fan for the very first time. But I'm not sure if back even in the glory days for lighting, I mean, you guys have been working it more than Paige and I have, but where would you say, what was our peak back in the 5 years ago, whenever? Would we be at 50% of a project? Would we never up that high? Okay.
I don't think so, Scott. I don't recall ever hitting that.
I don't know.
Few and far between got up that high.
Yeah. I mean, and there were occasional bonuses that were thrown in then too. Maybe if everything aligned just perfectly with the right product,
maybe
the right bonus.
What was it? The $18 a T12 tube years ago. That probably was pretty close.
Best, most lucrative rebate.
Yeah, I would say, and it all depends on obviously the environment, but I'd say with the bonuses right now, for example, on the Troffers, you might be at 30% of material, labor, cost.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Per item.
So I mean, I know you can't do a across the board average.
Well, we could provide you with rough percentages, maybe.
Yeah, that's a very rough percentages.
Right.
Yeah.
Really no
I
problem.
don't know, Paige, I'll defer to you. Would that be of some value? I don't want them to spend time if it's not.
I think that would be helpful because, we have our incremental capital costs that we use, and if those are off base, we want to correct those to align with reality. So we really know where our rebates are in terms of the cost.
Although you have on the last page of the the prescriptive form, you have the cost of the products and labor there. I mean, you probably already have that data in a way.
Yeah, we do, but I guess so. We pull that data before we do a plan, so we're not continually pulling it and evaluating it. So the last time we looked at it was in April. And so I don't know,
before the bonus kicked in. Yeah, my hunch is, you got a 25% bonus on a fixture, overall product cost. I mean, I'm just going to use raw numbers and don't hold me to it because I'm not basing on anything. But, so again, depends upon the project, but let's say if before you're getting 20% of the project covered by rebates, now it's maybe 22, 23, maybe 24%.
Okay, well, and my point was more with us discussing the inflation and everywhere. It doesn't
right.
category, the equipment.
Well,
I'm hearing
right, and that offsets exactly right. It's canceling it out. Yeah, as costs go up.
It's such a moving target too. I mean, even this year, and I'm sure all of you have experienced the same thing. We would get quotes, and then a couple months later, get additional, price increase just because shipping tripled.
Right.
We'd go from a $3,000 shipping container charge to literally $15,000 to $20,000. And you're like, wait a minute.
Right.
What just happened? And then on top of what Scott was talking about, just the labor, the cost of labor to retain talent is, gosh, it's hard. There's not a lot of electricians right now who want to do lighting full time, I would say. And then when they do, other companies are just offering so much, so it's hard to stay competitive. So we're paying them more, but we're also trying to find competitive ways to retain them.
Yep.
Through different types of incentives and things like that. So it's an interesting time right now to run crews.
Is there ever where, Paige and Bob, that you guys put any funding into workforce development or training certifications or something that would be helpful for to deal with the labor issues? I know we do that in different ways in the HVAC side, but
I don't know if you're familiar with the Building Operators Certification Program, BOC. We actually subsidize tuition on that. And they have a variety of programs that they schedule and to get that certification, and then CEUs that you need to continue to have it. Now it's for building operators, but I could send you the most recent update. Anna Siebenborn is her name. She's out of Portland, Oregon, but she manages the program here in Colorado and schedules the classes. Most of them have been virtual lately. I think they did their first round of in-person ones in Utah. But I know, that we get a pretty good turnout on that, with people. I want to say tuition's like $2,000 and we'll cover like a quarter of it, $500-600 once they complete, all the various courses. So that's one area that comes right to mind.
so something like that can be offered as
Yeah, I just got an email from her a couple days ago.
program. Okay.
I'll send it to you, Patricia.
Okay, great. And if we have any creative ideas, we'll bring them forward in that area. Great. Anything else, you guys? This has been a great discussion, and I feel like we have some solid takeaways to go work on.
Paige, let me see if we can't pull together some costs. I know price points are all over the place, but for integrated network controls and standalone controls for you.
Is it possible to get the cost of the control, just the control on an integrated fixture, or no?
For like a standalone one single fixture?
Well,
the additional
so we have the standalone controls where those are like wall or ceiling mounted, and then we have the integrated controls. For the integrated controls, can you just get the cost of the control, or you have to get the whole cost of the fixture? Does that make sense? Can you separate them?
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought by standalone controls, right? You have wall mounted ones, but you also have standalone controls that you can add to the fixture, and that gets the same rebate. Right. So, I mean, I tend to go with fixture integrated controls. So I can certainly give some sense of that. Some are more advanced and capable of doing where you can integrate, wireless remote.
And you can separate that cost. Like, what's the cost of the
Mhm.
fixture? What's the cost of the control? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because would they typically sell that same fixture without those controls?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
So,
okay. The
yeah.
difference. Got it.
Yeah. Yep. And again, price points all over the place. Depends on the brand, yada yada, but can give you some idea of what that looks like, at least with a kind of a mid-tier brand that I tend to gravitate towards. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
Network stuff, boy, that's really all over the place. I mean, Jim and Patrick, you could probably nod your head to that.
Absolutely.
Depends on the complexity of the project, the size of the,
Labor is a big part of it.
Yeah, and labor, right. Labor is a huge part of it. And it also depends upon the size of the room and how much stuff you're tying together and how easy it is to get to.
So it sounds like a lot of untapped potential there in the market, but I take it there are projects getting done and being installed that we're just not seeing. Is that safe to say?
In terms of network controls?
Yeah, as far as coming through our program, or is it just really in its infancy?
I mean, I think what Scott was saying before, that we and Patrick too, was echoing it. We really find a real hard time selling network lighting controls because the rebate amount is insufficient to relative to the cost.
And I think with network controls as well, there's a bad taste in a lot of building owners' mouths out there regarding those, because one glitch in that system,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you have issues. And so there's so many times that we're going out to facilities and like, hey, on a cloudy day, these lights are on and off all day long, just because it's a little bit too sensitive, you know?
Gotcha.
And these aren't even controls that I've installed. This is just, you know, customers that we have that we're going out to see if we can help. And it's like, unfortunately, oftentimes you got to get whoever programmed this in here to come back with their computer, plug in and reset everything. Recommission everything, exactly. Whereas, and this is just kind of our preference, but we prefer to just do more individual room controls just because of end user ability. You can control them so much easier. The adjustments are made on the fly. I can show a maintenance technician or whoever how to just adjust things, and the cost. Obviously, the cost of that is just significantly lower.
So is what you're referring to version 1.0, and now we're selling version 2.0, a big improvement, or is that still a challenge in the marketplace?
Well, I mean, you know, early adopter bias is an issue. You know, from just straight up LEDs. You know, people who bought first generation LEDs, which were you know, by today's standards kind of crap, and then they're like, you know, these things aren't worth it. I'm like, yeah, but that's based on your experience from 15 years ago or whatever. Things have moved along a long way. Same thing I think applies to network lighting controls. But Jim, and Patrick, I'll let you guys speak to that more than I. But yeah, one bad experience.
To answer your question, Bob, I think you were asking, you know, are you missing some projects? And in our case, no. I mean, every single job we do, we incorporate whatever rebate
there is,
applicable.
Excellent.
Unless it's a very, very, very tiny job, but pretty much every job we incorporate the programs that you have.
Well, and that's why when I hear good discussion on these controls, because this has been a real, you know, conundrum for us here trying to figure out the best way to approach it. But we focus on the rebate, you know, defraying that upfront cost. But the energy savings, you know, that's part of the conversation. I'm guessing there's got to be some pretty good energy savings, you know, to be able to kind of close the deal also.
Absolutely.
You know, you want the rebates up front, but the long-term savings is what we're all eventually hoping to go for, right? Is that part of the conversation? Is that a big factor?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's where, you know, KWH is huge. I remember doing some projects for the University of Denver, and in their field house, for example, they had all metal halides, and they couldn't turn them on and off because of the restrike issue. And they had racquetball courts and squash courts, and everything was on literally like 22 and a half hours a day. So once we put in, you know, in that case, that's how long ago it was fluorescent, but we put in door switches and put in motion sensors that could turn on and off these lights instantaneously, and put in these kind of local controls. The KWH, so the demand savings was like 50%. The KWH savings was like 85%.
Wow.
And that was a huge factor for the university in calculating the value of the project.
That's helpful. I'm always curious how that end of the, you know, calculation comes in.
Great.
So Patricia, can we kind of summarize some of the action items? Like what I had was that this group can help me collect controls costs for standalone and integrated controls. And then another one that we didn't really talk about now, but we've talked about before, is just an expanded wattage range for certain measures. If I can just get more specificity on that, like what are the measures that we need the expanded wattage range on, and how far should we expand that range to? That would be really helpful, along with costs. I sent along that spreadsheet last week, or not last week, but last time, and I know we didn't get to it today, but that kind of includes all the information that we need to analyze it on the engineering side. We need to know, you know, baseline equipment, new wattage, costs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's where I back to you saying, hey, this was a good form, so we can use that. And
okay.
And I remember we talked about expanding the wattage range to 0 on the not, eliminating minimum wattages for fixture categories, because, they're becoming more and more efficient, and setting up bottom wattage, you find the same fixtures doing the same thing. It falls below that lowest wattage, and it doesn't qualify for a rebate, which is nonsensical.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think some prioritization would be helpful, because we do have like limited resources. So if there are certain measures that you're running into this more than others, to have that kind of breakout or categorization would be really helpful for us.
Bollards was one area page just off the top of my head. Well, whatever the lower wattage is on bollards, it's not low enough.
Okay.
Because you can do a lot with more.
Yeah,
efficient.
I think that's kind of an interesting rebate too, because we lump it in with area lighting. So yeah, I get what you're saying for sure.
And when you mean baseline, giving you the baseline requirements, are you talking like the fact that they might have first generation LED and it wouldn't qualify?
I'm just asking, like, what's the typical equipment and wattage that you're removing and replacing with an LED?
Yeah, I know that. I was switching topics there for a second, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
so can you get, it used to be you get a rebate for putting in 34 watt T12 instead of a 40 watt, and that's, what is that, 12% savings. But the first generation LEDs, were 14, 15, 16 watts.
Oh,
Now the new wattages are 10 watts for the same lumen output. So is there a rebate for that to save that 40% going from a 14 watt LED lamp to a 10 watt? Can you get a rebate for that?
you can go through custom, but we don't have a prescriptive rebate for that.
Or, on the midstream side, it's instant rebate. But although, it is like going to buy an LED lamp at some big box retailer, the instant rebate's already applied. Xcel does not know what you're replacing it with. If you're replacing a dead LED, so you still get the instant rebate.
James, I come across that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, fortunately now, there's no, customers are allowed to stock up extras on LED lamps. They can buy extras, and the instant rebate still applies, thankfully.
So is that a priority then, or is that a just explanation?
I think it was just explaining, right?
I didn't want to.
Yeah, but back to Jim's point, can you get a rebate for replacing an older, less efficient LED generation with a newer one? And it depends. I mean, for certain lamps that qualify for instant, then I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
There has to be. I mean, we come across that all the time. And Jim, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times, facilities are owned by one person, and then they put in type A tubes in a 4-lamp troffer, call it, and then the new owners come in and say, hey, we're ready to do a full troffer upgrade. Nobody ever even accepted a rebate even in the first place for the type A tubes. Some facility manager just installed it, and here you are, we're going in with a 20 watt 2x4, and you're seeing a 50% decrease.
And you would get nothing for that.
I have submitted through custom, and like you said,
you get dinged, you get rejected every time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that, back to Jim's point about the custom rebate thing, I think that, for us, for jobs like this, it would be very beneficial if we just had that spreadsheet with the magic formula, everything already in there. This is the watt saved. This is the rebate amount that was guaranteed to happen, because all the math is baked in. So even if I have an inefficient older LED fixture that's burning 72 watts altogether, and I can drop it to 30 watts, I can guarantee to my customer up front that you're going to get, works out to be a $15 rebate for making that, based on just the watts saved.
Rob, I don't know if you can speak to some of that, like on the custom side, and like why we have that. It's kind of like proprietary. I don't really know why it is, but it is.
Unfortunately, I've been, down this path many a times because it's not just the lighting program.
Yeah.
I'll hear this across programs, and I mentioned the EMS building automation controls. That happens to be a program that is 100% custom. There's no prescriptive components because of what I talked about earlier, all the different variables. And I know we've had our EMS advisory board meetings. We actually have, similar to lighting, we have the third-party program audit taking place now. I've identified trade partners, that they're going to, talk to and interview. And this is the same type of feedback, that typically we'll get is and on the EMS side, unfortunately, they can spend hours, going through and putting everything together for the custom app. There's back and forth only to have it get rejected
Right.
and not pass. And the problem with that is now the customer is second guessing whether they even want to move ahead with the project because we just said, no, we're not going to give you a rebate for whatever reason, the savings or the payback period, et cetera, et cetera. So as many times as I've tried with engineering, I'm sorry to say, it's always a dead end with how they're able to, share any of that up front. It's like they have to get everything they need and then do the analysis. And it's almost like then the conversation starts back and forth as to what we can do to make it pass.
Two words, Bob, why you hit a dead end? Job security. I'm seeing anybody shaking their head. Yeah. Engineers want to keep their jobs. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
But it is, we're doing a job with the Department of Transportation and they want to assign the rebate against the bill. Mm-hmm. We don't know what it is. And they want to sign the contract. So the only way to do it, we've decided, is to do a deductive change order. Because only once the contract is awarded, then we'll know the specifications of the material. And that's based on time and, okay, we can't get this fixture, we're going to get that fixture, so there's going to be some moving parts, but it'll be after the fact. Okay, now we know exactly what we're doing. Now we submit it to Xcel. They'll put in writing what it is. Okay, we're not going to pay you that amount. We'll sign that over to you. But that's why it's important. Is a lot of times it's a part of the negotiations of a contract, and it doesn't work when it's not known.
Right, and then you can't start until you get that letter. Technically,
true. You can't purchase or you can have a bid or a proposal, but you can't have an invoice showing they've committed to buying it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that you could, Bob. I thought that we just require the application now. We don't, you can, if you want the pre-approval, you can wait for it, or you can go ahead and purchase your equipment as long as you've provided us your application.
I've heard that, but I have yet to see that happen. So
well, I'm not sure how many people want to sign up, saying your rebate could be as much as this or as little as that.
Right.
Or it could be rejected.
Right. That's what I mean. That's that.
Yeah. So I know I've heard that there's some flexibility there, but just for that risk, I haven't heard anybody want to go that route.
Yeah.
Is there anything to do on that piece then, or?
Well, we have a new custom program manager who just took over. And the good news is he's been with us a while and he's an engineer that Charlie Hood just took over. So maybe a future call will let him kind of get, he's already familiar. It's not like he's coming in, and from outside the company or, just inheriting this program and knows nothing about it. But he would be, I think give some good insight into a lot of these questions you have about the program. Custom in general, not just custom lighting. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think, Paige?
Yeah, he would be great.
Yeah.
So and it sounds like these are a lot bigger jobs, right? So it would be worth.
Well, the custom thing, it can be small or big. It doesn't. It's the virtue of the nature of that particular job and installation as to whether it would have to go custom or not. Or you have some jobs that some things are instant, some things are prescriptive, and some piece that you don't bother with is the custom.
But I think regardless, it sounds like custom is difficult.
Yeah, right.
Like it just said, it's like you end up in a loop.
Yeah. Well, and I could tell you, I mean, I've seen it happen over the years where things start out custom, and once we get a track record and we get enough of them in, and they do their analysis, and our goal is always, how can we make this prescriptive?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
can we do a one size fits all, make it easy for everybody? And I've seen it happen with a lot of equipment that 5 years ago was custom. Now there's prescriptive components. So believe me, we prefer that too.
To that point, Paige, you had mentioned it too earlier about making things simpler, and you talked about I think possibly removing the removed part of the prescriptive. So have you ever audited things to know to the letter, or to the number, whether what's reflected in what is reported in the removed products actually does reflect the reality of what's removed? Because more often than not, you're going in doing a retrofit job, removing, and you've got all kinds of ballast because it's been in place for forever, and you got a mixture of things, and having to account for that on the form is difficult. So I just kind of approximated or use majority rules kind of thing. So I'm not sure how, at the end of the day, how accurate, to the extent that Excel's using that information to generate savings, how accurate that, is it junk in, junk out? I don't know.
We have a third party that does a measurement and verification of like our savings. And then on the back of the app, we ask that customers hold on to a sample of their baseline equipment.
Right. But if you have 25 different types of ballasts in a building, where you're going to ask them to hold on to 25 ballasts, they're not going to, right? So
Yeah.
you just want to use just a representative sample of what got taken out.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But that would make life a little easier. I'm not sure if I'm not sure the benefit to you all is I don't know, significant, or whether you can just make assumptions that are equally good based on experience.
Yeah, see your point for that.
So you guys were at 4:30.
Okay.
Is there any burning last items, or we'll summarize this? I'm glad we recorded it so we can go back and capture stuff clearly. Yeah, I feel like we've come up with a bunch of items, and then we also have the things you guys put in chat too. So that's great. Anything else before we go? Thank you again. I think there's some really good things that could come out of this.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
I
Appreciate the time.
Oh, sorry. As like the long term, right? I feel like we're getting a handle on things, having time to work on them, and
Yeah.
we'll end up really, I think, when we come out, so I think if we can then touch base, go through these, figure out what we can and can't do, then we come out with beneficial electrification spring, and then we'll zig and zag and figure out how implement that, and really have a really nice plan going into the 2024-26.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
Well, Scott regrets that he had to drop off early, but I'll say goodbye for him as well.
Yes.
By proxy.
Great.
Very good.
He
All right, guys.
appreciates it too. So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, take care.